$99.
You can count. Wow, public school math did you wonders. And we're live. Hey, everybody out there in
I'm a
YouTube and
scientist.
podcast
The
land.
real question is, can you count?
I mean, I've got 10 fingers and toes, so I think I'm in the money right now. But hey, hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. Well, Doc is. But without further ado, we're going to introduce our...
Hey. The VA gave you a higher rating than I did.
This is true, but, you know, that's what happens when you get blown up 27 times. But other than that, I had a blast in Iraq, and we'll
for
move
me to
on.
figure out it was a bad idea.
Well, you know, I was a slow learner. What can I say? It was an exciting thing.
Well, let me rephrase this for clarity. It took once of you getting blown up for me to decide it was a bad for me.
I mean, you know, I do what I can. I live to serve, Doc. So we're going to talk, if you've read the title, obviously we've got another Dragon Award nominee, and this will be a released special episode on Sunday. So you've been getting lucky with all these bonus episodes, dear people. But so let me tell you, if you haven't listened to the first three, the Dragon Award is a fan-voted award that recognizes outstanding achievement in science fiction and fantasy literature, comics, gaming, and film entertainment. I promise people I can read. They're given out annually at the Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia, and have been going. The award has been going strong since 2016. We are at the final part of the nominations where people nominated their favorite properties. The tops numbered products were tallied, and now you get to vote on a selection of 5, I believe, right, Doc? 5 in each category?
Yeah, that's right.
You get one.
Okay.
Okay.
See, Dragon won't let her sleep. They just keep messing with her. Correct. All right. There are currently... Oh, and this is the important part. It's for fans by fans, so there's no membership required. You just have to have an email address to vote and a pulse. The pulse helps. And you can't be a robot. They check that. So, Doc, I wonder about you. Are you allowed to vote?
No, we require that they check that they're not a robot, not that we check.
Okay. All right. So you should be okay to vote. You don't have to admit anything, Doc. All right. The 15 categories currently are Best Science Fiction Novel, Best Fantasy Novel to include Paranormal, Best YA and Middle Grade Novel, Best Military Science Fiction or Military Fantasy Novel, Best Alternative History Novel, Best Media Tie-in Novel, that's an outstanding cover, Best Horror Novel.
Yeah, there we go.
And we've got Best Comic Book and Best Graphic Novel, 2 categories, although I know the picture book should probably be in one. People, send the hate mail. I got you. We've got Best Sci-Fi or Fantasy TV Series, Best Sci-Fi or Fantasy Movie, Best Sci-Fi or Fantasy PC or Console Game, Best Sci-Fi or Fantasy Mobile Game, Best Sci-Fi or Fantasy Board Game, and last but not least, Best Sci-Fi or Fantasy Miniatures, Collectible Cards, or Role-Playing Games. All right, Doc, did I mess that up too horribly?
Always, but that's okay.
Are you sure?
No.
I don't know. You give me the crazy eyes lately.
That's just because of the lack of sleep.
All right, that'll do it. All right, your turn, Doc. Let's pretend you've done this before.
I have done this before, though. Honestly, I do miss many of the award episodes because I'm normally so in the thick of dragon stuff. So we know you were recently nominated, and we know you are incredibly excited about this, right?
Oh, definitely.
So we weren't able to book all of the nominees, dear audience, because everybody has lives and logistics can be a little challenging. But we have John Jackson Miller, and we're going to let him introduce himself. Give us your illustrious bibliography and why we love you.
John Jackson Miller. I write novels and comics about a variety of universes: Star Wars, Star Trek, Simpsons, Conan, Iron Man, Mass Effect, Halo. Just a variety of franchises, both video game, movie, TV, comics, and very occasionally something of my own. But I've been doing that full time for about 15 years, and I'm probably best known in Star Wars for having done the Knights of the Old Republic comic series for the entire run of that. Then I did novels Knight Errant, Kenobi, A New Dawn, Star Trek. I've done novels both for the earlier TV series and then for the streaming era series. So the most recent 4 would have been Enterprise War, which was a Dragon nominee, Die Standing, which is I can describe each of these later if we even have time. But the most recent one physically out is Star Trek Picard Rogue Elements, and that is your nominee there. And I can describe that book in a bit as well later here. And then finally, the most recent book I've written, which I'm actually proofreading right now, is behind me on my wall. It is Star Trek Strange New Worlds, The High Country, and that is the first novel that ties in with the Strange New Worlds TV series, and that is due out February 21st of 2023.
Okay, so you said that what you were nominated for, which was Star Trek Picard Rogue Elements, and that it is the best media tie-in novel. So can you tell us a little bit about the novel? As much detail as you want. We got some time, obviously.
Yeah, this is Captain Rios. People keep seeing this cover and saying, "Is that Picard?" And it's like, no, it's not Picard with hair.
No, he does not look like he drinks Earl Grey hot.
Well, and then there's other people who say, well, is that you? And I said, well, that's very kind of you to say, but it's absolutely not. That is, of course, Santiago Cabrera, the actor that plays Cristobal Rios. He is the pilot that Picard has in the Picard TV series, pilot of the starship freighter, the La Sirena. People have said that he's sort of like the Star Trek Han Solo. I said, yeah, if he drank more, read philosophy, and smoked cigars. And definitely he has a more active social life than I think that Princess Leia would encourage. So it is definitely a fun book, because what it is his first. It is about how he gets the starship, the La Sirena. It's set about 9 years before the Picard TV series. So it is just after he has been thrown out of Starfleet for mysterious reasons that we see in the TV show. But really what we have is a standalone novel in which he actually gets to grapple with going from the life of a Starfleet officer to becoming a freelance freighter captain who is working in the region that the Federation has more or less abandoned following the destruction of the Romulan star. And so people ask me about what is my Star Warsiest Star Trek novel. This is probably it, because this takes place in the lawless areas in between the Federation and every place else. The interesting and fun thing about him is that because he is really going through the shock of having been thrown out of Starfleet, he doesn't want this job. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He doesn't want to have crew members. He doesn't want to have anything else like that. We kind of see a little of that in the TV show, because he's flying solo in the TV show and has created replicated versions of himself to use as the crew. We get to show where that came from. And this is because the streaming era novels were all working with Kirsten Beyer. Kirsten Beyer is one of the Star Trek authors. She writes the Voyager novels. Well, she was in the writer's room on Discovery. She's the co-creator of Picard, and she's one of the executive producers of Strange New Worlds. And so every one of these novels begins with a conversation with her about, where is an interesting point in time where we can write about these characters. Where can we position these stories so that, if they're not canonical, they're at least canon adjacent. We're able to actually, drop hints about things that are coming up every so often. Or no matter what, the idea is to try to get everything to sync up as closely as possible. But this book, I will say, is after having written 2 previous novels, Enterprise War and Die Standing, that were a bit more warlike, I would say, in terms of what's happening in those books. The kind of a body count in those books, very dark. particularly Die Standing, because Die Standing was the novel about Emperor Giorgio from the Mirror Universe and her first mission for Section 31, the spy agency. I had said to my editor and also to Kirsten, I said, I want to write something that is fun. I want to write a book that is just, pure, fun to work on and to read, and that will be a great summer read for people where, almost nobody dies. And, right off the bat, we're able to do something really fun, and that, we're able to establish, and this isn't really a spoiler because it's on the back cover, but we established that he bought the starship, the freighter, from the mobsters from the planet in the original Star Trek series, where everybody dresses up like it's 1925, like it's Prohibition era, like they came off the set of The Untouchables. Because literally they were using the set of The Untouchables because it was on the same Desilu stage or lot. I asked, well, can we write about what happened to those people 125 years later after Captain Kirk, left the planet? That was an episode called A Piece of the Action. We actually get to sort of follow that up. And, so it is a fun book with some surprising character appearances in it, more than just cameos. That Piece of the Action book as well, or TV show as well. I realized some time ago that I was born the night that episode debuted. So this is very much, I think, fate, that I would write a book with these characters. And so again, Star Trek Picard Rogue Elements. I got done with it, and I didn't want to leave the world. It's the longest novel I've written because it was so much fun. It has already won the Scribe Award from the International Association of Media Tie-in Writers, and that's judged by the other authors in my field, and that was much appreciated because I really feel that it is the best work I've ever done.
So
that's all. That's always a good feeling. Go ahead, Doc.
One of the things that honestly I think where it's vibing is Star Trek has a very different feel than Firefly, but Mal had that same kind of journey, so I think it vibes with some of the Firefly fans. But also, Jaron and I are both veterans, and that entire leaving the service, versus and finding that next path. I think those storylines definitely are going to resonate with readers, even if they're not big. I know it's weird. There are people who are not big Star Trek readers or big Star Trek fans. So I think even then it's going to resonate with them and help pull that in. I think that's great.
Well, thank you. There are characters that I've written about in similar sort of situations, where they're sort of undergoing a PTSD from having been abruptly cut off from the life that they were in and the life that was built around them. In particular, I wrote a novel called Star Wars: A New Dawn, which was a prequel to the Rebels TV series with the Kanan Jarrus character who was a Padawan when Order 66 happened. And so I got to follow what his life was after everything collapsed around him, and how he's put his life back together again and tried to sort of reconstruct who he was with the absence of that formative thing there. And likewise, certainly my most famous novel, Star Wars Kenobi, which is about the first month of Obi-Wan Kenobi's exile on Tatooine. That is very similar in that, everything that he lived around, everything that was structured around his life is gone. Same thing indeed with that Die Standing novel, because as the back cover says, no one has ever lost more than Emperor Giorgio has lost, because she was the emperor of the entire Mirror Universe, all known space that they had. And now she's in the Prime Universe, and she's just another one of us. So, so I tend to run in the same circles to a degree.
So given that you said that the main character is Han Solo, if we actually saw him doing roguish stuff, what age range would you say this novel is geared at? Because
What we kind of do is, well, they're all adult novels in the sense that they're not, marketed as young adult. What I try to do is I try to match what we see in the TV series. There are some 4-letter words in here, not the worst 4-letter words, but there are a few because we see them in the TV series. And so that's really going to be probably the only thing that would raise any eyebrows at all, because otherwise, it's Star Trek, same as if it was Star Wars. I mean, it's not necessarily that racy. I would say the raciest novel I ever wrote was that Die Standing novel, because Emperor Giorgio is just that kind of person. She's always insulting people, and there's always innuendo flying around. And in this case, Captain Rios has basically, when I was talking to the folks that did the audiobooks, Robert Petkoff does these wonderful audiobooks. And if you enjoyed the audiobook, you can vote for the book as media tie-in novel as well. I set the advice that, basically Rios has 2 gears, which are disinterest and disgust. He's just really wants nothing to do with the job that he has, or he's just really, really aggravated by everything. So that's happening around him. And so I try to confront him with as many things that are going to aggravate him as possible.
So
Okay.
what was your first reaction when you found out you were nominated this year?
I was really happy. It's out of camera range behind me here probably, but I did win a Dragon Award in 2020, the year we had no convention. And
no, we had no in-person convention. I did way too much work for that.
Well, that's true. Well, no in-person convention, and I was not aware that there were videos at that time. But yes, that's sort of the thing that was in the graphic novel category. That was Battlestar Galactica Counter-Strike that I had written, and that was for the 40th anniversary of Battlestar Galactica. That was kind of the trifecta for 12-year-old me, because I had a Star Wars product, a Star Trek project, and a Battlestar Galactica went out in the same year. And so that was just delightful. But that was a real surprise then. But there was no event in 2020 in person, and so I really am delighted to have the chance to go this time. I wasn't able to attend in 2019, I guess it was, when the Enterprise War one came up as well. So, but again, I am looking forward to this. I think I'm more or less the Simon and Schuster person there, because there's I think 2 other Simon and Schuster books as well in my category. But again, they've been really wonderful to work with the convention and getting me in.
I'm so glad that you're going to get a full Dragon Award nominee treatment.
It'll be great. It's one of the fun things about this is that the media tie-in category. One of the reasons why the Scribe Awards exist is that these books tend not to get recognized in the Hugos, the Nebulas, the traditional awards programs. And I think the thinking has always been that, well, these books have automatic audiences. They have automatic, followings anyway. It's not necessarily as important to help these books out. Well, we work just as hard as creators on their own properties, and in a sense, it's there are ways in which it's more difficult, because we're actually having to navigate other constraints.
Well, there's more chefs in this kitchen.
Yeah, there's more people working on it. Again, in Star Trek, we have we work both with Paramount. They're folks that handle the licensing things, and then we've also got Kirsten, who's keeping track of what's going on in the TV shows. Over in Star Wars, we have the Lucasfilm Story Group. My Dude Dawn novel was the first novel in the Story Group era, and that's a body that has people in it that keep tabs on everything that's going on. So basically, beginning with New Dawn, every piece of fiction, every comic book, every video game, every back of an action figure card where there's a little story on it or whatever, those have all been considered canonical. And it's, to me, it's not that important what's canonical. It's just we want the readers to feel like everything works. The readers want things to work. We want things to work. And we want people to kind of understand, well, here's the order to read things in. And, if you, for example, Star Trek Picard Rogue Elements, if you have not seen an episode of Picard, you're fine because the show hasn't happened yet. This is, I think you might consider technically, this is the next thing that happens after Star Trek Nemesis, in the sense of, in this sort of new era of books that we're doing, because Nemesis is at the end of the 2370s, and then you've got actually it's not the next one, the Picard novel Last Best Hope by Una McCormick, and I think that was a nominee as well. It's here is in there, showing what Picard was doing in between the series. And now we've got Rogue Elements, which shows what Rios is doing. So, the fans want everything to work. They want everything to connect. And stories are about more than how they connect to other things. But if we can make things sync together nicely as a bonus, that's cool.
So, having written in other people's universe, I can say that's actually a little bit harder than just making it up myself, because sometimes you get yourself in a corner and you're like, oh, I could do this cool thing and I solve this problem. We move on. When you're writing in one of their universes, they can say, false, you cannot do that cool thing. And here's why, because it's a book I haven't written yet, but and it can be limiting in some respects.
I do a panel on shared universe writing where I talk about, or not a panel, but a presentation where I talk about working in these other sandboxes. Working on Star Trek is like working in a national park or Star Wars or whatever it is. You only want to you want to take out of the park whatever you bring in. So you don't want to leave a lot of baggage around. You don't want to leave a lot of garbage around. You don't want to put your name on things. You should not actually be trying to get leave your stamp on Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever it happens to be. And what you find is that the very first thing that my first Star Wars comics editor said to me before I even pitched is he said, when you define, you can find. So when you explain how something that has previously been unexplained happened, you've possibly closed off story avenues for other people coming along after you. And that person might even be yourself. So, you don't want to go around establishing stuff. No one ever went to Planet X again. Well, that's terrible. You don't want that to be out there, because then no other writer can go to Planet X. All Wookiees were great swimmers. Well, that makes it difficult if your next story about a Wookiee who can't swim doesn't sync up with that. So I tend to say to folks, when writing in a shared universe, put all of the history, put all of the the world building kind of stuff in the mouths of other characters, because they might be incorrect, they might be lying, they might be misinformed. It's a lot easier to do that than to have to undo something that an omniscient narrator says. And I never really deal with omniscient narrators anyway, because almost everything I do is point of view written from Rios or whatever other characters I'm writing about. I will say one of the reasons that Rogue Elements was a special book for me. It is the first novel I've written where, with the exception of the epilogue, the whole book is in his voice. It's not in first person, but the whole book is from his point of view. So the mystery, and there are a number of interlocking puzzles, and including a literal puzzle in this book that are here for us. You're working them out at the same time that he's working them out, and he has long stretches where he can't figure it out, and that's a time where you're sort of you're, as the reader, thinking about it in the background too, and then wondering, well, is he going to think about what I thought of? And so again, yeah, it is a different kind of book for me in the sense that it is 100% up until the epilogue in his voice.
So you mentioned that not all of the books that are written in extended universes of various properties are canon. So what determines whether the companies view the novel as canon, and how would the audience know if they're tracking that kind of stuff?
Well, everything since Star Wars: A New Dawn in Star Wars is considered part of the Star Wars story. So anything before that would have a little logo at the top of it that says Legends, which is, for example, in my Kenobi book. And what Legends means is that it might have happened, it might not have. They reserve the right to use some part or none of it. Or all of it or none of it. Legends are like Robin Hood, King Arthur. There might be some truth to it. There might be a real person in there somewhere, and other things just may have been misremembered in the history, in the haze of history. And what that's done is that's allowed them to pick and choose and bring forth the parts they want to bring forth. So, for example, Thrawn is more or less the character in Tim Zahn's books, the new books, that he was in the old books. It's just it didn't bring with him all of the baggage, everything that the character had previously done. I brought forward a character in the Kenobi novel named Mosep Benid. He was Jabba the Hutt's lawyer that had appeared in the original. He actually appeared in the original comic book adaptation of the movie, although not under that name. That character, appears in the Kenobi novel, but I also got to bring him into a book called Star Wars Canto Bight, and that is the book that we did, which is a series of novellas about the casino planet in episode 8. And the story I wrote there was just an absolute delight. And one of the things I like about it is I was able to get this character that has this fun past, more or less into canon, without any changes whatsoever.
Okay. All right, Doc, next one is yours.
So what does this nomination mean to you as an author, but also really, and this may be selfishly, does it mean something different since you're going to be there this year?
The last few years, I've been writing most of my novels in the winter, the dead of winter. Usually I live in Wisconsin. And so, I actually have to, turn my big TV onto the screen in the room where I write. I usually have it streaming some happier place, a webcam from someplace that, even if it's still winter, it's a nice tourist downtown out in the Rockies somewhere or something like that. So I could feel like I'm somewhere instead of isolated, just like the characters tend to be in my books. I mean, Kenobi was written in the dead of winter here, and the only thing similar was the fact that I was isolated, and he and I both grew beards in the middle of it. Whereas, again, as with Rios, again, he is he's alone for a lot of the time, and trying to sort of crawl under a rock somewhere in the galaxy and hide. But I finished these books, and then usually the dynamic for me is that I get to go out to conventions and start interacting with people, usually about the previous book, and talking about them. And one of the things that was just so hard during the pandemic, and certainly other people had many worse problems, but I had just had my first convention of 2020 when everything shut down. And so the very first show that I missed was Mid-South-Con. And I've been affiliated with Mid-South-Con since the 80s. It's my hometown convention. I'm originally from Memphis. I go back there every year. It's always sort of like my spring break, where I get to escape the room where I've been writing all winter long, and have panels and talk to folks. And it just didn't happen in 2020 or 2021. It did happen, thank goodness, in 2022. But again, it's kind of like that where I look forward to the opportunity to actually get to interact with people on more than just a social media or Zoom or StreamYard or whatever you want to call it, medium. And so, getting to go to Dragon Con, that's going to be a cool deal. And, I've just been figuring out how the app works and why they never update the app and all the other things.
They do update the app.
My last update is last Saturday at 6:30. So I don't know if I need to reload the whole thing or not.
No, well, right now they're trying to, there's only so many data pushes they want to do at a time.
No, I get it.
I get it. Get all of us to do it. The problem is we're all volunteers with the exception of like 6 people.
Oh, I get it.
So we're doing hey, you want to update this? I'll work on that blurb tonight after I'm done with my day job.
No, the thing that I have always felt is the job of organizing a convention is something I don't want to do. It's very hard. My company, I mentioned that I work for the comics magazines, Comics Buyer's Guide, Comics and Games Retailer, and also I ran a magazine called Scry, which was a collectible card game magazine. There was a stretch there where we were looking at buying Gen Con. And I said, guys, you really don't know what you're looking to get into. This is going to be so hard. This is going to be so hard. I don't think you have any conception of what's involved here. So, I definitely appreciate all the work that everybody puts into these things, into running the show, organizing it, getting everything set up.
Okay, that is definitely a lot of work and a lot of peopling. So was your nomination something you campaigned for, or were you sort of surprised by it that your fans had put it up?
They say this is one where campaigning is or at least announcing is fine. So I did what I considered to be the somewhere between more than the minimal and less than what would seem gauche in terms of just putting that link out there. Again, what happens is the communities, particularly in these media tie-in novels, the communities get involved. The people that are with Star Wars or Star Trek or Firefly or whatever it else happens to be, they get in there and support the project. I think that happened a couple of years ago with that Battlestar Galactica thing. That it was a recognizable property in that list of graphic novels. So again, it's a different dynamic than a judge competition like the scribes are. But it's no less important to helping to promote and get people acquainted with the books, and that's what it's really all about. It's not so much about the reward as it is. It helps to expose the book to more people. It helps to get people who might not necessarily have tried a Star Trek novel in years a place to come in at, and really these latest novels have been wonderful. We've written them all in that regard to be kind of the introductory novels for people who haven't read any of these things. And just a good example is over the last couple of years since we've doing them, all of our previous novels had been mass market paperbacks for a long time. Then we went to trade paperbacks, and Picard Rogue Elements also got a hardcover release. And we hadn't done hardcover releases in Star Trek for like a decade. The same will be true of my Strange New Worlds novel that's coming out in February. It will have a hardcover release and a simultaneous ebook and audiobook release. That's all of that is designed to try to get to people as quickly as possible. The books in the versions of the
other thing is about the trade paperback and the hardcover, at least from the fan perspective and reader collective, is or the reader collector thing is a lot of people really have said that they prefer that for when they're collecting it, because I think more people like hardcovers and print, they're never going to go really away.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is we like to see them. So, I mean, if you, I buy a hardcover, I will buy hardcovers of books I already have as ebooks.
Yeah.
Because I don't have an issue. No issue.
In a sense, the hardcover, or if we're talking comic books, the comic book before it gets collected, is in a sense sort of like, this allows your hardest core or most interested readers a chance to support something before it goes sort of wide, before it goes into a format where it's probably the most inexpensive, the cheapest, most accessible format. It sort of is the if you want to call it the Kickstarter version of the whatever the story happens to be. It's the first version of it that the early adopters get and want to get. But it's also the case that it's just much better right now to be doing the hardcover trade paperback dynamic. The sad thing is, for people who like them, the era of the mass market paperback is I'm sorry to say done. It was drawing to a close already, but when Walden Books went out, that was it. Because what ended up being the new model for the bookstore in a physical space was not a small little place where you had to jam in as many books as possible, or newsstand places where you're trying to get them all on a spinner rack. The current model of bookstore is either the indie bookstore, which has some room and looks like a nice curated place, or Barnes and Noble, where again it's a big sprawling room where you've got books that it's important to be able to see the covers on the books from 20 feet away. That's why there's a lightsaber on the cover of every Star Wars novel, just about, even if there is almost no lightsaber play in the Kenobi novel, for example. There's a lightsaber on all of his novels because people can see it across the room.
It is so recognizable and iconic.
Exactly. And so that is kind of the dynamic there. It's also better for the environment because the copies of the mass market paperbacks, when they weren't sold, they were destroyed. They ripped the covers off and threw them away, or they went into the incinerator or something like that. So again, it was something that, it's just a change in how the people who sell these things do them. But it also it's better in a sense for the readers as well, because, they do have that, choice between hardcover and softcover. Even though they might not be available at the exact same time. The other difference is, because the pricing structure is different, you can actually see Amazon do a discount, or Barnes & Noble do a discount on a hardcover or a trade paperback. You go on Amazon right now and you're paying cover price on every single mass market paperback because there's no profit margin built into them. The fact that they are so disposable means they don't make any money on them anyway.
So getting back on track to fans and fandom in Dragon Con, what are you the most excited about at Dragon Con? And also do not forget, guys, if you're listening, go vote, because if you're going to Dragon Con, you're going to get distracted. Because Dragon Con starts on Thursday, the awards are on Sunday, and so you gotta vote. We can have time to get that in. So I'm saying aim for Friday, if not vote. I'm voting before I even get to leave the house. And I live in Atlanta because otherwise I'm not going to vote by the time I get down there. I'm just going to be too busy.
Slacker, I voted already.
You know what? I thought I'd actually listen to some of these, particularly since I know many of the people in the military sci-fi category, but this is the first time I've really gotten to talk to one of the media tiein novelists. So I'm super excited. But what are you the most excited about for attending this con?
Well, again, it's my first one. That is again so weird. Of all the major conventions in the United States, Dragon Con has been the one that I have not gone to, and I'm not really sure why. Because again, it is back when I was at the comics magazines. I just don't think we ever set up at Dragon Con while I was there. And so, I didn't get to attend it during my day job. And then here in the more recent years, I'm just not sure why. One thought is that, I had a lot of books that were launching right around Labor Day. So, for example, yesterday, as we're recording this, was the 9th anniversary of the Kenobi books release.
Yeah.
So, for example, that book, I went back to Memphis for the release party, so I could do it in my hometown. And then the next year it was in my hometown up here. I went to the Barnes and Noble to do the Labor Day weekend release party for the New Dawn book. So just one reason or another, I never got there. And also I get to wear. I really don't want to do two conventions right up against each other. So whenever it would be, yeah. So
you want to be functional for both of them.
Yeah, and so depending on what year it was, we would usually have Gen Con or something right next to it, or something like that, where it was I just could not see doing it. But again, very glad to get down there. I have not done a convention in Atlanta since Timegate in 2012.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and so it's been quite some time, and I have been told by everybody that there is that this is going to be an overwhelming experience with lots and lots of walking. I'm going to be signing in person, both at a booth there, and then also at your event Friday night.
Yes.
And I guess we can get onto that later, but where I'll be. But yeah, it's and then I have several panels lined up already, and so I'm just sort of discovering all this as it's happening.
So I know that's actually how you and I started talking. Was you reached out to me and you were like, "I'm attending and I have no idea," and I'm like, I thank goodness you rolled with it, because I was very tired, and I was happy to hear from you, and I'm like, okay, here is the fast, dirty brief of how to do this.
Yep. Yeah, no, I am just, it's one of those things where it did not start to gel until the nomination happened, and then suddenly it's like, okay, yeah, better go.
So yeah, you have like 12 events at Dragon Con.
Yeah, Yeah, there are panels. The Star Wars authors panel, Saturday night. There's a Star Trek author panel, and I believe that's Monday. And then there's also a panel on Saturday afternoon on media tie-ins, which kind of works, and another one on intellectual property that's on Monday as well. And then otherwise, I'll be signing in Mart 2, and I don't know which building that is. It's floor 2 of whatever the Mart is.
Okay, so Dragon Con, if you're new, and we might have some new fans listening who haven't been, Dragon Con has like 7 buildings. So this is a Mart 2.
Okay.
I wasn't kidding when I said download.
Yeah, no, I got it.
So
there's a booth called Bard's Tower that I've done work with in the past, where they'll have a number of my books on stock, and then I'll have I'll have a batch of books as well at the event that you have Friday night.
Yes. So the event he's talking about, guys, if you're listening, is the Fantasy Gather, which is a book party that we have at Dragon Con every year on Friday night in Hanover Hall, C through E, and of the Hyatt, where people can come, they can mix and mingle and meet authors network with each other. Fans tend to leave with some new book buddies. So both the kind that they can go home and read with, and the kind that they can talk books with. So it's definitely a time to come. But I figured, I normally don't plug my own events, but this one I figured, since we've talked about it, we should definitely let people know what we're talking about without having to download an app. So which panel do you think you're the most excited about participating in?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the audience is like on each of them.
Very passionate.
Yeah, I did get the schedules, and I was like, well, I have 2 hours here. I wonder if I should plug yet another thing in between these two things. And I said, maybe I shouldn't overdo it. I kind of forget to eat. So
yeah, no, that's definitely a thing. We should definitely make sure you eat food. If you find me, I will have coffee and snacks.
It's very good.
Many authors forget to eat, and many track directors, namely me.
So did you pick since you were, a nominee this year, did you pick the panels you were on, or they just say, hey, be here and be there for that?
Oh, I was such a late addition. I filled out the form and everything, and they found me. Several, and then in addition to those, I knew Steve Saffel, who's he's moderating the tie-in panel, and I airdropped into that one.
Yeah, I know you're doing on Monday at the IP panel.
That's the one that's not on there yet because they haven't updated the app. That is the writing media tie-ins. That's Saturday, I think, at like 11:30. And then the IP panel is Monday. Almost immediately after the Star Trek panel, and in a different building. So how that works, I don't know.
It's in the Hyatt Embassy.
Yeah.
And the person who came up with the title has a really bad habit of puns and thinks it's funny.
Oh,
IP here, IP everywhere.
Yeah. I tried not to try not to think about that, but there we go.
It's okay.
So what you're saying is you're gonna
make fun of it. I do all the time.
So what you're saying is you're gonna bring your comfortable running shoes so you can get from panel to panel.
I won't know about it until I actually experience it, whether it's possible. I'm taking their word for it that I can get from building to building in 30 minutes.
You can, but you may have to occasionally look at people and go, hey, I'm an attending professional. I hate to tell you this, but I need to get through.
Yep.
So it's okay. We do understand that can happen. And if you show up a little late, we generally are very understandable about that as directors. So, because we understand particularly your first year that you don't know where everything is. So do you think we'll see more with this character?
Oh, with Rios. Well, I don't want to spoil
like more books.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil Picard season 2 if I can help it. What I can say is a couple of things. First of all, Rios has I cover 2 whole years of his career here, but there's still about 7 years that we haven't seen in between that and Picard.
So with the success of this, do you think they'll let you do another book of it?
Anything's possible. As for the character himself, I've always told folks that there's no fate for a character that appears on screen or elsewhere that can't be undone or can't be changed, or is it exactly what we
honestly
think?
He sounds fascinating. Like, I just want to read about him more.
Yeah. Oh no, he's a blast.
So I'm really hoping that they look at this and they go, cool.
One of the reasons that this book is about a third longer than the Die Standing book is that even though I had built all the worlds that Emperor Georgiou was going to, and I could have made it longer, I was kind of looking at it and saying, it's just exhausting to be in her mind because she's from a place where everybody's evil and conniving and constantly calculating. And even though she's sort of reforming a bit in this, in our universe, it was almost tiring to have to be in that headspace all the time of always being suspicious of everybody and everything. Whereas, Rios is just laid back and it's just, the chaos is surrounding him. And, it's rare that he actually has to take a hand in it. And then when he has to take a hand in it, we have some just wonderful action scenes. My trademark is the big set piece, whether it's a space battle or, a wild occurrence that's happening in a physical area where, I really think through the setting and what characters are doing, and sort of the diehardness of it all, what is, how can I work this setting and where the characters are into the action, and die hard on a building, die hard on a spaceship or whatever, and so we do get bursts like that, but my feeling with Rogue Elements is that I just wanted people to sort of have a book that they would read for fun, and that would be a relief after what was a difficult year. Of course, the irony is, even though I had said in the acknowledgments of Rogue Elements that I hoped the world would go quite back to normal by the time this book was out. It was already still crazy when I was writing the Strange New Worlds novel, which is coming out in February. So I think my acknowledgments literally start with, "All right, let's try this again."
I like that.
All right, that's a good thing to do. And so you've mentioned that you follow some of the DragonCon award side of things, even though you haven't been there in person to accept it when you won the last time. Do you think we'll see an expansion of the categories? Right now there are 15 awards. Is there anything you'd like to see them add to the list?
They've got a really good list, and I think the danger you get into if you add too much is you get into an Eisner situation where you can't finish the awards in under 3 hours. That's coming from, I've actually run an awards program, or at least tabulated an awards program, because the Comics Buyer's Guide had the CBG Fan Awards for, like 15 years. And I was tabulating the votes and everything for that. And that was another one where it was the general public that voted. We would always have 3,000 or 4,000 people, voting, because the ballots were, we didn't have social media, but Marvel would run the ballots in its letters pages, and we would run the ballots in the in our publications too. I think we had 14 categories, and 14 seemed like a good number because it meant that when we did our own awards events, I think we were doing them at Mid-OhioCon back then, which is again another reason why I didn't get to DragonCon. That was kind of the goal, was to be able to get through them in an hour and a half or whatever the allotted time was. I see that the Dragon Awards are set for 1 hour for this event Sunday night. We'll see how that goes. I guess it will depend on how many people are physically there.
Well, I will admit, I've gone to one or two of them, and they're pretty, I don't want to say they're succinct, because in some way, because that is, I mean, they give them their due. Yeah. But many of the speakers and introductions, they do not go on and on and on and beat a dead horse like the Academy Awards do. So that helps.
Yeah. And, it's always about, when you've got the people in the audience to actually accept, that each one of those adds 3 minutes. So,
that might be a very valid point.
So I would suggest every year that and I get the hate mail for it, and I've already gotten the hate mail, so hopefully I don't get it again, but I suggested that they combine graphic novel and comic books so they could open up a category. But people are like, it's not the same. I'm like, it's all a picture book.
No. It's a different, different markets, different animals. But then that's, I mentioned to you before the show, that's my side gig. That's the other thing I do. I do a website called Comicron, which is the world's largest public database of comic book sales figures. And so that spins off of what I was doing years ago at the Trade magazine. And so I've got all this data going back to the 1930s. Not all of it is on the site, but quite a bit of it. And, one of the things that we really get into is definitions of what's a comic book, what's a graphic novel. We do an annual report that I do with ICV2 on the comics industry. And we have, for example, the comics category and a graphic novel category. And every year we have to explain to folks what goes in what bucket. Manga, well, no manga or graphic novels because manga have spines. It's they're not a story told serially in magazine format. Again, it's one of those things where the boss of my company that I used to work for, because we did magazines about comics and toys and every other collectible thing. He once told me the only category that fits everything perfectly in any hobby is miscellaneous. So
I love it.
So unless you want to have just miscellaneous as your category, you have to be arbitrary and firm and say, okay, this goes in this category, this does not. And so again, that is a fun thing that we deal with.
I guess you told me, Doc, but so we don't have to belabor that point. You can ask the next one and save me from myself.
Oh, saving you from yourself is sometimes fun, sometimes not. So, but obviously we know which book you're voting for in the media tie-in category, but do you know who else you're voting for in any of the other categories?
I voted pretty much the day that the thing came out, so I'm not sure I remember what I voted for at this point.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a really legit answer.
It is a true answer.
How many of the obviously, if you voted, their chances are you read more than one in each category. Do you have any favorites on the list without associating?
I've read some. What I will say, I have seen just about everything in the because they have the TV shows in there as well, in the movies. I will say, and I'm not just saying this because I worked on it, the book about it, but the Star Trek Strange New World show was just such a breath of fresh air. And I knew it was going to be, because of I'd been working on the novel back this time last year, but I was just delighted with how it came out and the reception of it, and it was a really strange month of May for me, because I had the Picard novel out at the same time the Picard series was wrapping up season 2. Which was right when they were launching Strange New Worlds, which I was writing a novel about at the time, and then of course the Kenobi show launched, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show launched, and of course my mentions exploded when Ewan McGregor came out and announced that he had read the novel, and the director came out and announced that she had read the novel, and for several weeks there it was just all about well, John, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And it's like, I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the fact that they respected the one of the major storytelling decisions we made in that novel. There's no conflict between the books, the book and the series. But again, it is surreal having all this on at the same time.
Okay, that is a good problem to have.
So what are you going to do when you win?
How will you celebrate?
I will certainly thank all the other people that are nominated, because we've got Tim Zahn's got his Thrawn book in there, Claudia Gray's book is in there, colleagues of mine at Star Wars, my colleague at Simon & Schuster, and he also wrote Star Wars novels as well, Troy Denning. He's got a Halo book out. That's something that's got a really hard level of because I've written Halo myself in comics and in short stories, and I really admire how hard it is to work on a video game property, because a lot of things are going around at the same time that you're working on it, and then also my friend Dave Mack, who his novel, the Coda novel, that book wraps up the novel universe that had been started around the year 2000 in the Pocket Books line. I think they ought to really call it the Pocket Universe. So again, that's something with a really high degree of difficulty. Just trying to write it. And So, all of these are worthy nominees, and I'll certainly recognize anybody there if I get it. And if not, I may be the one that ends up picking it up for anybody who's not there. So we'll see.
Ooh, that would actually be harder. Close to greatness, but it's not yours.
That happens. So I'm here accepting on behalf of David, who got the Grand Master Award at the Scribe Awards in San Diego. Picked up the one for Rogue Elements. So, and he was very gracious to do so. He asked me beforehand, "Is there anything you want to say?" And I'm like, well, I'd say I'd be shocked because I didn't think it's going to happen.
All right. So if you win, how will you display your trophy? Are you going to add an addition to your house just for the trophy room?
Well, I've got the Battlestar Galactica one here on the shelf over here. They're just very nice, and in particular, I was really delighted that they got that to my co-writer, or actually my artist, Daniel HDR, who is in Brazil. And they managed to get it down there safely, and I was just thrilled by that. And so I again do appreciate that.
They have a shipping wizard who works in the office.
Well, I mean, it's a big hunk of glass, so
I know what it looks like. Believe me,
I'm like
beautiful.
I'm like, wow. So, and again, that project was very much a labor of love as well, because it's not like that's an active license these days. That was really more, 40th anniversary book for the TV show. It was very depressing when I started working on that comic book, and I realized that I was the only person on the staff of the Battlestar Galactica comic book who was alive when the TV show was on.
Which version?
The original.
Oh, okay.
And so, what I ended up doing was, and that was why it was sort of a personal, good thing to have, recognition for, because I more or less was the unofficial co-editor on it, because I was constantly saying, okay, no, that ship is from the 2003 show, not the 1978 show, or whatever. And but Daniel just nailed it. I mean, everything came out great. So again, just delighted to have been nominated, and to have the chance to go down there and do this ceremony.
Outstanding. All right, last question, and then we gotta wrap this up. We've talked a lot about the properties. It's been a lot of fun. We definitely want you back. So you've written on the original Battlestar property. Have you written on the new one too?
Oh no, too dark, too heavy.
The new one is very, very heavy.
Yeah, and again, I've done heavy stuff like that Die Standing book, but I'm kind of like, let me have more space for jokes, and let's do something fun here, and particularly now. And that's why I say again, both the Rogue Elements novel and the Strange New Worlds novel coming up, I've written them both to be a place to escape to.
Nothing wrong with that. There's room in the market for that. But as we bring this puppy to a close, how can listeners or viewers find you on the wild interwebs?
Okay, well, we mentioned Comicron. That's COMICHRON.com. That's the website about the comic book sales figures and other historical information. That has both the website. Comicron is the Twitter for that, also the Patreon and the Facebook account for that. My Twitter for my comics and fiction work is JJM Faraway, which kind of goes along with my website, which is farawaypress.com, where I have behind the scenes notes on everything that I have ever done in comics and games and novels, up until a certain point where I ran out of time to write about them. But it's sort of like the director's commentary. And then also on Facebook and Instagram, it's just John Jackson Miller.
Outstanding. And you can find us, dear listener, on the Twitters at twitter.com/SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, Blasters and Blades Podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook where all the shenanigans happen at facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, /groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. We have our website at anchor.fm/blasters and blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on, or you can help support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and we'll keep this production running. But the good news is the website is for our Anchor FM, which hosts everything. But Doc has recently bought the domain name for blastersandblades.com. And so after the craziness of Dragon and she catches her breath and catches a few weeks of sleep, we will start looking into a proper website. And notice I said we, but Doc's going to do all the work. All right, Doc.
JR. It's a good thing Mom sends good presents.
I do what I can. All right, Doc, bring us home.
Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Nick Garber, the absent-brained, and JR, the addle-brained, I'm Cisca. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, indulging our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, all things that go boom, and of course, picking on JR because he doesn't understand how amazing pineapple on pizza is.
Heresy.
It's
and may the force live long and prosper.
Outstanding.
Don't forget to go vote.